Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Keep Calm and Read On podcast. Today is October 2nd, 2015, and this is an exciting episode, listeners. Today, I have on a very special guest. Her name's Nicole Rivera, and she wrote a book, which I talked about yesterday in the podcast, called Finding Unauthorized Faith in Harry Potter. And I got a chance to chat with her about the discussion of Harry Potter and faith, and it was a lot of fun. And I really hope you all enjoy it as much as we enjoyed recording it. And yeah, that is my small intro. If you are interested in reading Nicole's book, all the links will be in the show notes. And you can check out, I'll put the links to her blogs and stuff in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. And otherwise, that's the intro, so enjoy. Welcome everybody to Keep Calm and Read On, and today I have a really special guest. It is Nicole Rivera. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I was about to say welcome back. Just kidding. If you listened yesterday, you'll understand.
Yes. I'm happy to come back as many times as
yes.
I'm allowed to.
Ooh, we can have a series.
That would be awesome.
That
my goodness.
That could be a lot of fun.
Do, like Hunger Games and Twilight and everything.
Oh, yeah. That'd be very interesting. Oh my gosh, I have so many ideas now. Okay.
Oh, and Divergent. I have very strong Divergent opinions.
I've never read Divergent.
Oh, okay. Read the first two, and then just skip the third and go straight to the movie.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll take your word for it.
Or just, torture yourself through the third and then compare it to the movie.
All right, sounds good. All right, so Nicole is on for a very special discussion today. We're going to be discussing a very special topic to both of us, and mostly because Nicole has a book coming out on this topic. And why don't you first tell us about your book? It's called Finding Unauthorized Faith in Harry Potter.
Yes. Yeah, it actually was originally called The Parable of Harry Potter, but then we had some title issues with rights holders, and we changed it to Finding Unauthorized Faith in Harry Potter, which I like better, because I found that a lot of people don't know what a parable is.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So if you're not exposed to the Christian culture, or you're it's kind of like a churchy language type thing, I don't think most people know what parable. Like off the top of their head, they're not going to know what that means. I mean, they'll probably know it's a story, but they won't really relate it back to, oh, this is a story from the Bible, or a moral story from the Bible like Jesus taught, or something like that. But it started off, I did not intend to write this book. This book was highly unintentional. It started off as a paper, my final project for my master's in creative writing. My professor said that we had to pick a story, some kind of novel, and do a paper on it and relate it back to Christianity. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's either going to be, I'm either going to be crazy and do Harry Potter because it's 7 books and that would take a lot of work, or a little bit less crazy and do Twilight, because I also love that book. Don't judge me. Or even a little less crazy and do Hunger Games. And I actually deliberated that for probably a week. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I got to do Harry Potter. So I literally spent like 8, 9, 10 hours a day just reading Harry Potter, because I had to get through it and make notes really fast. I had over 400, 500 pages of notes. Because the notes were way long. Like my final manuscript, I think, was like 420 pages or 450, something like that, 400 and something pages. And my notes were longer than that. That was a condensed version. That was my final paper. And so then my professor, who also founded the college and also has his own publishing company, he said, oh, why don't you turn this into a book? And so I worked on reformatting the paper into a more devotional type thing, because that's how I kind of felt that was like the better route and format for it. And then I submitted it to my agent, and he got really excited and submitted it to like all these bigger publishers, and they all turned it down. Most saying that because Harry Potter was past its heyday and nobody would be interested anymore in Harry Potter. That was their consensus. So I went back to my professor and I told him what happened, and he's like, well, then I'll just publish it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think I even knew at that point that he had his own publishing company. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I kind of just like had a Gryffindor moment and went with it without even, usually I deliberate things for a while. But this time I'm just like, nope, I'm doing it. Fine. I've gone through I got like 10 rejections. I'm like, I'm just gonna put it out there, see if people like it. Maybe it'll help one person. Maybe I don't know what it'll do. If it helps one person, then it's a success. So we did that, and we, when he first published it, he wanted to start off as short ebooks to see how it did. So we split it into 7 short ebooks because he thought 400 pages for devotional is probably a little long, which I agreed. And so we started doing that, I think it was like 2 years ago, and releasing them a few months apart. And they, they weren't like crazy bestsellers, but for what it was, with absolutely no marketing behind it whatsoever, just like literally putting it out there, it did fairly well. We sold roughly, last time I even counted, I think it was like 1,000 books. So yeah, so then we decided, okay, let's put it into one, let's reformat things, let's redo a few things here and there, and let's put it into a physical book format and put it out there. So that's what we've done. I have not gotten the final copy yet. I have the ARC, but not the final polished version. So I'm excited for that. And the book comes out December 10th, just in time for Christmas. So, yeah.
Very awesome.
I think it's been like a 4 or 5 year run, like from paper writing all the way through. So, yeah.
That's amazing, though. Just to think of how it started and then what it's become. That's so cool. Yeah.
So, yeah. Because I always wanted to be a fiction author. This was never, ever, ever my plan. Yeah. Because I was listening to your podcast, part of your podcast review, and I'm not a devotional reader. I don't really like devotionals, or I haven't experienced a devotional I really liked. So when I went to this, I just was like, I just want to make a devotional that I might like. And I love Harry Potter, so I don't know.
Well, that's what's really great about the book, though, because, I mean, as you know, like, I haven't found the right devotional. Well, I guess I have found the right devotional, actually, this book. But usually I don't like them, and with this, it's different, but maybe it's because it's combining, Christianity with something that you love. I don't want to say that. It feels weird saying that, but that's the only explanation I can think. I mean,
to me, it's like Jesus taught using stories that people could relate to. So Harry Potter is a story a lot of people can relate to. So what better way to learn biblical principles than through a story that you already know and care about and love? I mean, I loved Harry Potter before I became a Christian. I think personally that the Harry Potter stories prepared my heart for the day that I decided to become a Christian, because they reveal a lot of things, because Jesus taught using parables, and it revealed things that he was not saying directly to the people. You know what I mean? So he's speaking to them. He spoke in stories. He spoke to them through stories. So to me, that's what Harry Potter is.
That's a really smart point, actually. That's like, that's the power of storytelling right there, actually. Yeah.
That's why it was originally called The Parable of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But nobody understood me. Or not nobody, but a lot of people didn't understand that. So, because I got a lot of questions about what's a parable? What's a parable? What does that even mean? So.
I guess now that I think about it, I mean, I thought I knew what it meant, like, before I ended up kind of paying attention in church and stuff, but I guess, I don't know. I can't even think to a time when I didn't know what it meant, so I guess it isn't that common of a word. I don't know.
It isn't. I don't know. Because I don't think I knew that, even though I went through to a faith-based school. I don't think I knew that, what a parable was, until I actually started reading the Bible on my own.
Right.
And actually getting into it.
So can you quickly go into your story about how you came to Harry Potter and then how you came to faith?
Okay. I came to Harry Potter in, I think it was the summer before my junior year, because we had, I don't know if they still have reading counts points, but we had to read, I had like 18 books over the course that were non-school work over the course of our 4 years of high school. And I was getting towards the junior year and I hadn't done any of mine. Because I was just struggling with just finding, I used to love reading. I went through all the Goosebumps books, sometimes multiple times, Babysitter Club, all those kind of books. But once I got to middle school, I don't know, the books they were giving us, it turned me off of reading. Like The Yearling, oh my goodness. I couldn't, it was, I didn't want to read anymore.
I haven't read that yet. I was just about to read that book and then I put it aside. That's
well,
so funny.
I haven't touched, I mean, the last time I looked at it, I was 12 or 13, so I haven't looked at it since then. Things that I would have liked at 12 or 13, I don't know if I'd necessarily like right now, because I love Jane Austen, and I don't know if I would have liked that at that age. But, yeah, so my friend's mom said, oh, why don't you try reading the Harry Potter books? They're really good, and you'll enjoy them, and they'll be fun reads, and you can get some of your points out of the way. So at that point I was desperate. My mom bought me all 3. We were all desperate. So I had to babysit my cousin that week because she was sick. She was only like 6 years old. And I literally read through all 3 in 1 week because I loved them so much. I didn't do very well at babysitting, I don't think. I just gave her medicine and put her back to sleep. But that was essentially what I did. But yeah, I read Harry Potter the whole time, and it was amazing. And only the first 3 were out at that point, so I could only read the first 3. So then I waited for the 4 and 5. I was never, I pre-ordered them and would pick them up at Barnes & Noble the next day, but I was never the wait in line all night. I think I value my sleep too much to do that, but I definitely would pre-order them and go and get them. And yeah, it just evolved into it. When I went away, I went on a study abroad trip right before my senior year in college. And they were like a source of just solace for me, because when I was homesick, I went to a bookstore in Florence and I found a British edition of Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix. And as awful as Umbridge is, that book like kept me going. Kept me from being like, Mom, I want to go home right now. Save me. So yeah, no, they've meant a lot to me. They've been a comfort through different hard parts, and I feel like they prepared me for faith, because I did not grow up, like I grew up in a quote unquote Christian household. We celebrated Christmas. I didn't really go to church. My mom tried to get me to go to Sunday school and I dropped out. And yeah, so it wasn't like I grew up in a Christian environment. We never read a Bible. We didn't really have Bibles around. And then I went to a parochial school. I'm not going to tell you what denomination, but a certain denomination. And it's the first time I actually started thinking about God, but I don't remember learning about Jesus and all this other stuff that they taught. I had a really bad experience with one of my Bible teachers, and it kind of turned me off of the faith for a while, along with a lot of personal loss. Like my grandfather passed away, and my mom's best friend passed away, and it was just like, it felt like my great aunt, my great uncle passed away the same day. So I went through like a lot of loss in a very short period of time, and so I kind of just said, forget it, I don't believe in God. And I just called myself an atheist, but at the same time, I still believed in like angels and stuff. So I don't think I was really an atheist. I just called myself an atheist, and I was really mad at God all the time. So obviously I had to somewhat believe in him to be mad at him. If not, I'm just crazy. So, anyway, so I went to, I think I was like 19. It was like a month or two before, my 20th birthday, I had hit like rock bottom after my first serious relationship ended. And it was just a really bad relationship. I ended it, but it was traumatic. So, a coworker he was a believer. And then, he wasn't a coworker, but he was he sold stuff to our company. So he would come in from time to time to make sure he managed us. We were one of his accounts. And they kept him, talking to me about God, inviting me to church. And I'm like, God does not exist. And they challenged me, prove God does not exist. And I was naive enough to think I could do that. And then eventually for one of my like research things, they're like, oh, for your research, you should come to church and at least listen to what the opposition has to say. And of course I fell for that. And I went to church, and I don't know, I really liked it. And I don't know, it made me feel, I don't remember what the preacher talked about or the pastor talked about, but it made me feel like, oh my goodness, like almost like alive inside again, or like joyous again. And then, so it was almost like an addiction. I went back the next week. I'm like, I got to get another like shot of this, whatever's going on here. I needed the shot of it because I was really struggling with just like depression and all this stuff back then. And then I did it again the third week. In the third week, the pastor shared his story and all he went through, and his depression and just everything that he went through, and he tried to kill himself and it didn't work and all this other stuff. And then at that point, even though his story wasn't the same as mine, I so related to his story that when they do, when they ask, who wants to or who wants to place their faith in Christ, come at that church, you walk to the front. That's how they did it. So I walked to the front. I was like nervous as all get out. I was shaking and everything, inwardly. Because I'm not like a public person, so for me to get out of my chair for anything, even if they were offering something for free up there,
yeah,
probably wouldn't happen. So my friend thankfully walked up with me, and then I prayed the prayer. And I mean, I didn't start getting into the Bible until another year after that, or 2 years after that. But it was a slower process. But yeah, then I don't know. Once I did start reading the Bible, I just got more and more into it, and like, oh my goodness, so this is where that comes from. And then just starting to connect dots with Harry Potter and just different stories. And at this point, I'm at the point now where my husband says, you're not allowed to talk during movies because you're ruining it. Because if you know the Bible well enough, you know story patterns. And if you study it, you're going to know story patterns. So when you're watching movies or reading books, you can kind of predict what is going to happen, or what's going to happen pretty much. So like we were watching this one movie, and I won't give you the title of the movie, but let's just say like within the first 10 minutes, there's this woman and then this other woman, and the main character, and then another woman. And I turned to my husband and I'm like, that other woman is not real. It's in her head. And he's like, no, you're not right. You're not right. And all the way to the end of the movie, it reveals that she's not real. And he's like, you ruined the movie. You talk about me ruining movies. You ruined the movie. I'm like, I don't know. I think that the more you study the story patterns in the Bible and learn that, you can see it reflected in movies that are made in the Western culture. Because a lot of it is roots in the Bible.
And people forget that. People often, they see the Bible as kind of like a rule book. They don't realize that, and even Christians don't realize that it's classic literature, and that so much of what we know of storytelling is in everyday life, in little stories that you read. They're so influenced by the Bible, you just don't realize it.
Yeah, majorly. It amazes me. It amazes me. Captain America, Christ story. I mean, pretty much any superhero movie relates back to the Bible. Any superhero movie. Most princess movies. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Twilight.
Yeah.
Even Divergent. As much as I have issues with that. It all, it's there. Even if you're going to talk about, like John Granger talks about ring composition theory, it's there. There's rings all throughout the Bible.
Right, yeah.
So, to me, as a Ravenclaw, I don't know if it's just because I'm a Ravenclaw or what, but it's fascinating. And I love picking apart stories and breaking them down and getting to their elements and relating them back to the Bible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Like,
it is. Like, my husband's like, doesn't that ruin movies for you to guess the ending before? I'm like, no. I love just seeing if I was right.
yeah.
Like, I love watching it unfold, and if it's right, then I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so cool. Because I saw that, and if I'm wrong, then it hopefully helps me see, I usually figure out what other story in the Bible or what else it relates to. So, I don't know. It's fun for me to pick apart stories, whether I'm right about them or right or wrong about them.
I agree with you. It's so much fun. And if I've said that sometimes to my mom, and she'll say to me, yeah, don't say that out loud. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like the other day, I've been getting into Shakespeare lately.
Okay.
And I've been watching like some like adaptions on film, and I told my mom how much I was enjoying it. She's like, yeah, don't say that out loud. I'm like, what?
Don't say
that. I'm like, well, is that a bad thing? I don't know. But
if you're passionate about stories, you're passionate about stories. I mean,
exactly.
Explore them, dive into them, do whatever you can with them.
Yeah, seriously.
So.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. I wish somebody could pay me to do this.
Oh my gosh. Same
that would
here.
Be awesome. Dream job.
By the way, yeah, seriously. I don't make money on this podcast, guys. Please know that. Okay. So that's a really cool story. A good.
Well, there are ghouls in Harry Potter, so we can go with that.
That's true. That's true. They just talked about the ghoul in pajamas on the Alohomora podcast.
I'm so behind on that podcast right now. I have to get caught up. I'm totally caught up with academia, but I have to get caught up with Alohomora.
I'll have to put links to those shows in the show notes because they're amazing. Oh. I did pre-order Ravenclaw Reader. Okay. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Or, well, I have it now. What am I saying? I ordered it and I have it now. Mm-hmm. So, that'll be my next Harry Potter book after yours. So there we go.
Awesome.
So today we're going to actually discuss some topics that have to do with the topics discussed in Nicole's book. So let us begin. Because as you said, like, I'm not going to go into my story, but I'll just say that, I always, when I was younger, would pick up on the biblical imagery in Harry Potter. And I honestly thought I was crazy. And then I was at church camp one year, and our pastor showed us a clip from The Lion King, like at the part where Simba sees his father in the sky, his father's spirit in the sky. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, we can compare like pop culture and stories to the Bible. That's really cool. And so that's when I first started like actually paying attention to that kind of stuff. It's interesting because so many people, the relationship between Harry Potter and Christianity is not a very good one. It's getting better, but it's not very good.
Yeah, I know.
Because a lot of people think that because Harry Potter is a wizard, that it's against the Bible. And so that's just interesting to think about, considering it's almost like heresy to some. That we're talking about this. And I know people who feel that way still.
I do. I've had somebody message me on Facebook and have a very long discussion about it.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And I just, at the end of the day, the person is a Christian. They don't have to get how this can reach other people and help other people in their lives. So I just kind of let them have the win on that. You know what I mean? Because I'm not here to convince them. They've got their own thing. But, yeah, she was very convinced that this book would lead people to the occult because she feels like it almost led her to the occult.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So,
Oh, okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah. Even though I'm like, that's a very incorrect interpretation because if you read John Granger's book about looking for God in Harry Potter, he discusses the difference between occult magic and what is actually in Harry Potter, which is not occult magic. So it's an incorrect interpretation. But then again, people read the Bible and incorrectly interpret it all the time and do horrible things to people. Right. So does that mean we should not read the Bible because we might incorrectly interpret it and go, I mean, atheists read the Bible. I posted something on MuggleNet that had to do with Christian themes, and I had an atheist back me up because he knew the Bible and he knew the stories in the Bible more than some of the Christians who were against what I had posted or against Christ having anything to do with Harry Potter. So... yeah.
Well, and it's interesting also that it just happens to be Banned Books Week. Just throwing it out there.
Which is awesome. This is a perfect time for this.
It is. Oh, it so is. Because I briefly talked about this on an episode this week about banned books. And every single one I named, even though the stories were vastly different, what united them was the fact that they were defiant or different from what society would expect from, I guess, quote unquote, a normal story or a safe story. And they sort of, stepped out of the comfort zone of what society was used to. And I feel like Harry Potter does that and can teach Christians. It's just, it feels unsafe and a bit out of the norm in a way. But, Jesus wasn't safe. He
told lots of stories that would have probably ended up and wound him up on the banned book list had he written them in a book back then. Because he was crucified because of the stories and the things he taught and said.
Right.
By religious people. So it's kind of reflective of what Harry Potter's been through, the story. It's kind of reflective of what religious people did to Jesus back then.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I'm not saying all Christians, not all Christians believe this, and most Christians that I've found that don't, that believe Harry Potter is bad have never actually read Harry Potter. They've just read what other Christian authorities have said about it. So they don't even know for themselves, and when they do read it for themselves, they're like, wait a second, there's nothing wrong with this. And then it changes their opinion. It's just getting them to read it.
Yeah.
Is the hard part. But once they read it, then they change their mind because then they see for themselves.
Yeah, and I will say that the person that I know who doesn't like the series, I won't go into her story because it's very personal, but she had, she read the first book and she loved it, but she just couldn't continue reading it because of some personal things in her life, and which I can obviously say, fine, don't read it anymore, that's fine. I wish she would have, but, she just felt that, and it did have to do with the church, her story, and she just had to stay away from it, which was a shame, but, understandable. I think one thing that we should probably talk about right off the bat is, Harry being a Christ figure.
Okay.
Since that's the biggest thing that people, I find, notice in the books.
Which is kind of crazy because I did a post about Christ figures in the Harry Potter series, and I had a very angry reply about comparing Harry to a Christ figure.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, what exactly was the reply against that theory, or did they just not like the theory, or
they thought it was blasphemous for me to compare Harry to Jesus, and they also, some people didn't understand what makes a Christ figure in literature because Harry is obviously not perfect. Right. That making somebody a Christ figure in literature does not mean that they are exactly like Christ. It means that they have, it usually means they have some sort of resurrection. It doesn't have to be as literal of a resurrection as maybe Harry's was a literal. Sometimes it's a emotional resurrection, or some other. It doesn't have to be a physical death. Like, they could just try to. They could like, sometimes a superhero will think that they're dead and then they come back. That's a resurrection, even though they weren't actually dead. They threw themselves in front of somebody, took the bullet. It looks like they died, but they didn't. They came back. It's a symbolic resurrection.
Right.
So, and Harry Potter was very selfless. He had a quote-unquote saving people thing, which is very reflective of Jesus and what he had a saving people thing. He came to Earth to save people. That was his mission, and that's what he did, to show God's love and to save people.
Right.
So what does Harry do? He is almost this vassal of love because his mother cast the love spell over him by dying for him. Also, Lily is a Christ figure because of that.
Yes.
So he is carrying love around with him everywhere. He is like, because Dumbledore, I think, says to him that within him is that power that's in the room that's locked at all times in the Ministry of Magic. Within him is contained such amounts of that power of love that Voldemort can't stand to be in him, and that Voldemort can't kill him. So, and then when Harry repeats what his mom did and follows, often Harry's called the Christian everyman, who we should be as our journey to becoming more, because every Christian should eventually be a Christ figure. We are supposed to grow and develop and become Christ-like. Christian means little Christ. So we're supposed to resemble him. So calling Harry Potter a Christ figure is not blasphemous. I'm not saying he is Jesus. I'm saying he is a Christian, or he is a little Christ. Yeah. He is a reflection of him. So Harry defeats Voldemort. I hope that's not a spoiler at this point. I think.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, sorry.
Yeah.
When Harry defeats Voldemort, we see a very, an almost very literal death and resurrection. Because they say it's happening in his head when we know Jesus went down to the place of the dead and then came back. So anyway, he resurrects, and then this love that he has, this love that has been protecting him now is like caping out around him, and is almost like Bella when she like pushes her shield around her, and is protecting all of his friends. And then what is Jesus? Jesus, he died on the cross for all of his friends, and we become his friends when we trust him and put our faith in him and decide to start following after his ways. So it's very reflective of the whole Christian journey. And then us then becoming little Christ, and then going out into the world, living like Christ, loving people like Christ loved them, and then bringing them to his love, so then they're also bathed in it, and they can bring other people there and bathe them in it and protect them from death.
And that's just such a smart way to look at it. Like, that's I was just, as you were talking, I'm just sitting here nodding my head like, yes, yes.
I've had a lot of hours to think about it. It took me a long time to write that paper, and I was working on it like, it was my full-time job working on that paper, so yeah.
That's amazing.
I have lots of notes.
That's something like I only like wish I could do. So.
You could do it. You just...
Yes.
It might take a little longer. Like back then I was a student, so I had, the capacity to work on this 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Which I don't now, but...
Appreciate it any students listening, appreciate it while you can.
Study as much as you can while you have the time, because you can still study when you have a muggle job, but you have far less hours.
Yeah.
Especially if you get older, if you get married, if you decide to have a family, there's gonna be less hours to do that kind of stuff. So enjoy your free time.
Exactly. And in college, you have all those tools in front of you, so use them while they're there.
Lots of freebies too. And
exactly. There's no freebies once you graduate.
No.
Not that I know of.
It's like they rip that student card out of your hand and shove you into the world.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Oh gosh. That's a whole nother topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man. One thing that I have to bring up also about Harry being a Christ figure is that obviously we were talking about the ones that, we usually pick up on when we're reading, but a lot of people, like, the brilliance of J.K. Rowling is, like, the little things that she puts into the books that you never would guess unless you do research about other books and other, like, study Latin or something, where she gets names from and such. And something that always has wowed me is that Harry's Patronus is a stag, and a stag is actually a symbol of Christ. And that just amazes me, like, that he has this guardian that is literally Christ. Like, it's like Christ is protecting him. It's just, or that he's actually, when he saves Dudley in book 5, he's protecting Dudley. He's Christ saving Dudley. It's just amazing.
And if you just look into his name, I mean, Potter.
Yeah.
God is the potter. We are the clay. He's forming us and molding us and reforming us and making us into what we are supposed to be. And then in Harry, if it's short for herald, is a herald spreading a message. So,
oh my gosh,
spreading God's message. I mean, he's God's vessel for God's message. And then if you look at Lily's name, Christ was referred to as the lily of the valley. And then last name Potter, God is the potter forming this. So Lily is her name is also very much a Christ-centered name. And then James, one of the authors of one of the books of the Bible, / the brother of Jesus, Potter.
Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, I can't say for 100% certainty she picked those names for that reason, but it seems a little ironic.
It does, yeah. So. And even think about, like, in book 7 when Harry sees the statue of his parents and him. Like, a lot of people I've heard compare that to the Holy Family, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus. Yes,
because they also have to, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, when Jesus is born, the king of the time decides to murder all the little boys because he hears a prophecy about this little boy that's going to take his power away and become a king. What does that sound like? And then Joseph and Mary have to flee and go into hiding to protect this boy. What does that sound like? I mean, I'm going crazy over here. Is it not obvious?
I'm, like, smiling from ear to ear right now. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Oh.
It's so obvious, guys. We just gotta look hard enough.
Read the Bible, read the Bible,
yes.
Read the Bible. Even if you don't believe, just read the Bible. It's there. It's so fascinating. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one important thing. Even if you're not a believer, just read the Bible because it is a piece of literature in itself.
And it's gonna open your eyes to so many different elements in your favorite stories. It'll wow you. It's awesome.
Definitely. Something that we didn't get to talk about last time we recorded this was this. I guess people are saying this is a new theory, but I swear I feel like I've heard it before. But it's the theory that Dumbledore is God, and that who is it? Voldemort, Snape, and Harry are the 3 brothers from the Deathly Hallows story. Do you know about that theory?
I actually have not heard that theory. I think Dumbledore is a god figure. Obviously, he's not God because he's not perfect. Right. He admits to not being perfect. But especially in Deathly Hallows, he is a god figure because all of Deathly Hallows is Harry struggling to have faith. And it mirrors most of our struggles, and I'm pretty sure it mirrors, because J.K. Rowling has admitted to having a struggle with her faith, and the first scene she ever wrote was the first part of the books she ever wrote was the last chapter of Deathly Hallows. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I think that's accurate. So to me, this last book is mirroring her struggle to believe. Because that's basically, Harry has to not go on facts anymore. He has to not go on what he feels. He has to take a step back and say, what did Dumbledore tell me? What would Dumbledore want me to do despite how I feel, despite my natural reaction, and to choose to trust Dumbledore? Because if he hadn't done that, he would not, I don't think he would have defeated Voldemort. He wouldn't have done it if he would have gotten after the Hollows. If he tried to protect himself from death rather than becoming a conqueror of death by giving himself over, like the brother with the invisibility cloak did. He didn't try and defeat death. He welcomed death like an old friend. You can't, one of the verses in the Bible is that perfect love has no fear. What do most of us fear? Most of all is death. So when we become perfected in love, then that fear of death is taken away. And that's a growing process, and that's a trusting process, and that's a serious needing to lean on the understanding of God versus our own understanding. And I think that's the journey that Harry goes through in Deathly Hallows. It is a trust journey, and he has to learn to trust not Voldemort. He has to learn to trust Dumbledore for him to be able to get to the point where he can defeat Voldemort, which is defeating death, which is verse that was on his parents' gravestone, and his mission in life was essentially defeat death.
This is why Deathly Hallows is such an amazing book.
Oh, my fave.
Yes, mine too. Honest to God, it's so good.
I could go on for days.
Yes. Oh gosh. I will say that a lot of people, especially when I listen to Alohomora, they'll talk about Dumbledore and how they hate that he didn't tell Harry everything.
No, he's not. Harry needed to discover. He needed to discover. There are things that we need to discover that somebody cannot tell us. And I think even Jesus knew that. That's why he spoke in parables. There are things we just have to be able to discover, to be able to understand them and be ready for them. Because there's things that, even in the Bible says, there's things that we cannot handle knowing right now. Our knowledge right now is not full. It's partial. Because there's just things we're not ready to know yet. And there's things that you just have to discover in life. My mom had told me a ton of things, warned me about a ton of things, and I still had to learn them on my own because I had to discover what she said. So I think Dumbledore gave him, God gives us just enough of what we need to get to where we're going. And it's a faith walk. We don't know how things are going to turn out. We just have to lean on and trust him and kind of just walk and do our best to follow what we learn and feel and believe he is showing us and guiding us to do. And along that path, he'll get there, but we have to trust him to get us there. And the only way to do that is to set aside our understanding and what we naturally would want to do and just follow that path. And that's what Harry did. Exactly. And I think Harry was not ready to know everything that he knew at the end of Deathly Hallows that he knew at the beginning. He was not ready.
Right.
It was too much. So I disagree with that point.
So do I usually. I'm usually at work listening to Alohomora and, typing something up and thinking, no, I don't agree.
Yeah.
No. But I never write in. Maybe I should write in one time, but I never usually comment on there.
Well, maybe you should be on it, and then you can comment live.
One day.
That would be awesome.
I mean, I was on the one episode, but that was for Half-Blood Prince. There was no discussion of that. So
yeah, now that Deathly Hallows, I mean, time's a ticking when those podcasts aren't going to be around anymore. Or
yeah,
they might still be around. They might just do a different thing.
That's true.
I don't know what they're going to do with it. But going back to the three brothers, I had not heard that theory. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Because
Harry had the invisibility cloak, but originally he thought the best of the three would have been the resurrection stone.
Right.
And Hermione said the invisibility cloak, and then Ron said the wand. But I think probably towards the end, Harry realizes that the invisibility cloak is best. I see that Snape would want the resurrection stone because of Lily. That would probably be the biggest temptation for him. And then obviously Voldemort goes for exactly what he wants. He wants the all-powerful wand because he wants to be all-powerful.
Yeah.
And so I kind of see that. The thing is that for me, Harry, for most of the series, he would have wanted the resurrection stone. And so did Snape. And I think that upon their deaths, I don't think Snape in Deathly Hallows would have chosen the resurrection stone. I don't think he would.
That's interesting.
I don't think I think at that point he had grown beyond that and he had changed beyond that, and I don't think he would have done that to Lily. I don't think he would have done that knowing to bring her back would cause her pain, especially after he is essentially the reason. He is the reason that Voldemort knew part of the prophecy, and he's the reason that Lily was killed by Voldemort. I don't think he would have chosen the stone.
That's really interesting. I never thought forward to that, but that makes sense.
I don't know, but
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So with the time we have left, let's get into like the little areas of the books where we also see biblical instances. One thing that, and we talked about this before, was Percy.
Yes.
He's one of my favorite characters. I don't know how you feel.
Really?
Yeah. Now
he's interesting, but I wouldn't call him my favorite.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna say favorite because like I like him, because I don't, but I think that's why he's one of my favorites, because he's interesting.
He is. He's interesting in Deathly Hallows. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Before that, he kind of annoys me like Mr. Collins from Pride and Prejudice annoys the heck out of me.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good comparison.
Oh. Because, I mean, Percy is, to me, he's not, like we discussed before, he's not only the prodigal son, because he comes back, but he's also representative of Pharisees and very fundamentalist religious people, I want to say, or people that are, I mean, religious people, because Jesus didn't come to start a religion, he came to open up a direct relationship to God. So to me, Percy is representative of those people who are so obsessed with rules, they missed the whole point, that Jesus came to show us how to love, to cover us in love, and to ask us to love him and to love other people.
Right. So
Percy misses that until the end. Like, he eventually gets the point. And it's not rules, it's loving people around you.
I will say to that, maybe I also, when I was younger, I feel so weird saying this, but I used to actually relate to Percy because I probably was a lot like him. Actually, I was a lot like him in middle school, because I was very much like thinking about the rules and stuff and thinking like, oh yeah, you shouldn't be saying those things, you shouldn't be doing that, you should just be paying attention to school and stuff. And so very much I probably related to him a lot, which is weird to say, but yeah, so maybe that's why I think back and like, oh yeah, I do like Percy as a character, because it does resonate with me.
I kind of think we all have a little bit of Percy in us. We all have a little bit of that judgmental side that we have to get over.
Yeah.
And just really, I mean, if not, we'd all be perfect, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we all struggle with some kind of prejudice.
Yeah.
And in order to get over that, we really have to learn to love as Jesus loved. Because I don't know anybody who's not prejudiced against something.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be something massive. It could just be they think that people who read Harry Potter are silly.
Yeah.
That's a prejudice.
Yes, it is.
So, and I mean, I have a prejudice in thinking people who don't read Harry Potter are silly, so I'm working on that.
Yeah, there you go.
So it doesn't have to be like some big, huge issue, but we all do have to learn to love people despite our disagreements and our prejudices. And I think Percy kind of represents that. He learns to love his family more than his prejudices and to see past and to see, I mean, his eyes are opened, so to say.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, I do like Percy.
Yeah. Something else that always stood out to me was Wormtail, and his death, and how it could be compared to Judas, and how they both took their lives in a redemptive way.
Yeah. By strangulation, also.
Yes, yes. And what's interesting is that, and going off a little bit, but I think it said that Judas hung himself on an elder tree. I think I'm correct in saying that.
I don't remember, but that would be a very good point.
Yes, like, I think John Granger was the one who pointed that out. I don't know if I was on MuggleNet Academia where he said that, or if it was in a book he wrote, but either way, it's such an amazing comparison. I feel like that's not an accident. No. That has to be, it's brilliant.
She had to have read the Bible quite a bit to be able to put some of the stuff in there. She had to be very familiar with it.
And I'm sure she did.
Yeah. I mean, she's a very close, serious reader from what I've read.
She is.
So I bet she has to know what she's doing. But
and I will say... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that in John Granger's book about ring composition, he makes a really good point of how smart Rowling is, because she apparently she has one of the top scores in the game Minesweeper.
Oh yes, I've heard that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and apparently you have to, I mean, I never got the hang of that game, so what does that say about me? But
I don't think I've ever even played it. I don't know.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's weird, but I don't even know if it's on computers anymore. I guess it used to always be on the computer.
Yeah. I used to always go for solitaire, so
yeah, there you go.
I never did Minesweeper, but yeah. Actually, when you brought up Peter Pettigrew, I was gonna say I was just talking about this with somebody, I think on MuggleNet, and I noticed that we were talking. Yeah, another person on MuggleNet was doing a post about the Christian themes in Harry Potter, and one of the things I don't remember what reading it was that I noticed was, if you in the beginning of Harry Potter, Sorcerer's Stone, at the zoo, Harry Potter releases a snake. From that moment on, he has to battle a snake until the very end, when Nagini is killed by Neville, and then he kills the ultimate snake, the heir of Slytherin, Voldemort. So he battles a snake that whole time. And that, I mean, in the Garden of Eden, Satan is a snake. They release sin into the world via this snake. And all of humanity has had to battle this snake until, essentially, we're still battling him until Jesus returns. But Jesus made our way around it by his sacrificial death, and now we can choose to trust in him, and we're set free from that. But, I mean, I think the parallel is obvious.
Yes.
Am I just crazy?
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, he battles the snake. The whole, I mean, if you think about it, right now I'm reanalyzing book 2 because I've got issues. But in book 2, Chamber of Secrets, it's all against, he's battling the snake. And he has to kill it, and he has to kill the basilisk in that one. And then going back to Peter Pettigrew, who is the snake's servant? The rat. Snakes eat rats.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And one thing, I mean, small tidbit, I grew up on a reptile farm, so my dad has like over 100 snakes. So I'm very familiar with this topic. Like, when I read the part about the snake blinking or winking or whatever, I'm like, I'm like, they don't blink or wink. But anyway, in the snakes, one thing about them is you can, like, if my dad were to feed them a mouse, like put the mouse in the cage, they will live in harmony with that mouse until they are hungry. And they only eat when they are hungry. So,
oh my gosh.
Voldemort essentially lives in, well, not harmony, but lives in harmony, does not kill Pettigrew until it's time to kill Pettigrew.
Oh my gosh.
Which is when he turns on Voldemort. So, I mean, I don't think she knows enough about snakes to have planned that out, because she didn't know enough about snakes to know that they don't close their eyes, or they can't wink. But, I mean, she could have known that. I don't know. It just might have all just been a coincidence. But I just noticed that because I lived around reptiles my whole life. But, yeah. I just found that very fascinating. I was talking with one of the other MuggleNet staff members the other day about it, and yeah.
That's just brilliant. I've never heard that before. Yeah. So
I think it's just I have too much information about reptiles stored in my brain from years of living with my parents. So, yeah.
Very interesting. It's so fascinating. Like, I'm like fist pumping the air right now. Like, because, like, this is an amazing topic. Let's put it that way.
I think it's brilliant. I think she knew. I think most people know that snakes eat rodents. Yeah. I just think it's brilliant that Voldemort is a snake and Pettigrew, his servant, is a rodent. I mean, how dumb do you have to be as a rodent to serve a snake? To run to a snake? You gotta be pretty dumb. I'm just saying. Yeah, or desperate.
Yeah, or desperate. That's a good way to put it.
So, yeah. And, oh my goodness, sorry. I just had an idea.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my dad has boas and pythons. How do they kill their prey? Strangulation. They wrap themselves around it and strangle it to death.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah, before they eat it. There you go.
This has reached a whole nother level, and I love it.
It has nothing to do with faith at this point. It's just it's a reptile show.
Yeah.
Biology.
No, but that's awesome, though.
Yeah.
That works perfectly, because the snake is, a huge symbol in the Bible.
Yeah.
So that's, even though, what we're talking about doesn't really have much to do with the Bible, it has almost everything to do with it at the same time.
Yeah. Because it's just essentially Voldemort is representing Satan at this point. Or you could say an antichrist. Because the Bible says there are many antichrists, and it's not like just one antichrist at the end of time, but there are many antichrists throughout time, and it's just people who set themselves up against Christ, like Hitler.
Right.
So Voldemort's very much a Hitler figure, I think. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Harry, in his own lack of understanding or whatever, sets the snake free. You can say it was probably a bad feeling or whatever towards this anger towards Dudley. Sets the snake free, and now he's got to battle a snake until the end, until he grows into the person who can defeat the ultimate snake.
Wow. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love it. I love it so much.
You have to wonder, what does she know that she put in there, that, or are we guessing things that she didn't purposely put in there? Was all of this intentional? Because if it was all intentional, oh my goodness.
Bravo.
I'm just in awe. Yeah. Way to go.
But again, like, that goes back to, I mean, it is a question of did she mean to put it in there? But I feel like, how could she not know? Everything is placed so perfectly. And same with ring composition and all kinds of other things that are talked about with these books. Because, like I was saying earlier, that John Granger says she's so smart. I feel like she knows about all of this stuff because she is so smart. She knows how to organize this and put it into such a brilliant work of fiction.
And she's such an artist. Like, her meticulousness makes her more of an artist.
Right.
I mean, this book we could talk about for the rest of our lifetimes and our children's lifetimes and everything. We could just probably keep picking apart this book.
Exactly.
I don't think we're ever going to reach the end of its depths of what we can talk about.
And that's what's so brilliant, because when I was listening to MuggleNet Academia, I guess the newest episode was about violence against women in Harry Potter. And that is something I honestly have never thought about with these books. And there's just new topics constantly coming up that I never thought about, and it's just going to continue, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Just listen to Muggle Night Academia. They have every topic surround, like, things you would never think of.
Mm-hmm.
They have on there professors who use it to teach history and science and all different kinds of things. And the crazy thing is it's making students better learners, because they're taking this shared text, as John Granger calls it, that people just adore, and you don't have to ask them to read. They've already read it 7 times straight.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're applying it to a subject to make it more interesting so that students can learn more. I mean, that's awesome. And I would love if everybody learned the Bible because of this, but there's other things you can learn through it too.
Right.
So I just happen to be obsessed with the Bible, so.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like such a good point, because I mean, I know from personal experience, when I was in school, I love reading. I've always loved reading, but I never read the books assigned to me in school. I'm just going to be honest. I'm throwing it out there now. I never read the books. I always read Spark Notes. Even in college, like, I read Spark Notes. And Harry Potter, it's so different. Like, it makes me want to learn. And I think kids are, I mean, it's the same way with the younger generation, with our generation as well, when we were younger first reading it. So
it's brought people to reading that like, it brought me back to my love of reading. I don't know if I would have ever become the reader I am today without Harry Potter. Let alone, like, let's set aside my faith. I don't know if I would have come to faith if this wouldn't have prepared me, but I also don't think I would have been the reader. I don't know if I would have ever discovered that I want to be, like, I wrote before Harry Potter ever existed in my little journals and stuff. I used to love to write stories, but I don't know if I would have discovered that without Harry Potter.
Right.
You know, like, it just, I don't know. It's done so much in my life that I feel sorry for people who have purposely shut it out, or out of ignorance have shut it out and don't even realize it, because I don't know. I gotta get my husband to read this book.
Can we, like, make a petition?
I know. I'm like, he loves those, like, leadership books and everything. I'm like, no, but there's leadership qualities, and you can become a better leader through Harry Potter. Yeah. You can become a better person, a better whatever you want to be, just by reading Harry Potter and relating to these characters and growing with them. Oh, I think John Granger said that it's almost as if, because there's, like, symbolic baptisms throughout the book. Yeah. It's almost as if, like, there's a story account where Jesus tells this person who's unclean, he has a skin disease, to go and dip himself in this pool 7 times and he'll be healed. Well, when you're baptized, you're usually fully, you know, like back in Jesus' day, you were fully submersed in the water and you were lifted out 1 time. This guy had to dip himself 7 times. It's almost as if the 7 books are like 7 dippings for us, and washing of our minds and growings. And each time we get out, we're growing a little bit more, and we're getting a little cleaner, so to say, in our brains. I mean, it's changed the level. This has changed our society, I think. I mean, it's made us more open to people who are different or believe different than us. It's made us kinder, I think, more selfless. I mean, not perfect. Nobody in society is perfect, and we're not always all selfless. We can do very selfish things. But I think the people who have read Harry Potter, at least the ones that I've met and the ones that I work with on MuggleNet, we don't all agree about everything, but we learn to treat each other with respect and to honor each other, even if we don't agree. And I think that that's something we learn to do through Harry.
And that's an amazing point, because there's a book I have, and I haven't read it yet, but it's called Harry Potter and the Millennials, I believe it's called. And constantly at work, the past month, my coworkers are part of the baby boomer generation, and they're relentlessly picking on me, like, in a fun way, because we're friends, but they're making fun of me because I'm a millennial, of the millennial generation. And I really think that, like, we'll have discussions, because one of the women I work with is a Christian, and we disagree on a lot of things. And sometimes I find I can't have a conversation with her because there's certain people you can discuss things with and certain people you can't, because they might be more standoffish about a topic. Like, some people are more open to discussion. And I feel like as a millennial, I feel like Harry Potter has had such a big impact on our generation because it makes us more open. And it's okay if we talk to somebody we disagree with.
Yeah,
Just like
and
you
we're
were
not
talking
going
about.
to bite their head off. We're not going to...
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, that you are going to have people who are going to bite your head off. You are going to have people
Yeah.
who call your name. But I think, for for the greater degree as a generation, we've become less closed off to people, less my way or the highway, and I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say, and if you say something that I don't agree with, I'm going to call you names, rather than logically discussing it. And I'm not saying everybody in our generation does that, because I've met with several people who don't.
Yeah.
But I do notice that people that, especially the really big Harry Potter fans, it's just something different about it, because there's 60, over 60 people and over 100 people on staff at MuggleNet, and obviously not 100 people are not all going to agree on something, and not everybody's a Christian, but they respect my faith and I respect them, and we don't throw each other into the bus. We don't say mean things. We don't, call each other names because we don't believe the same thing. We respect each other. We respect the differences, and we still care about, and I think that's what it is to be a Christian. Christianity is not about judging people. It's about loving people even when they're not believing in what you believe or doing what you feel is, or what you know is right to do. Jesus didn't judge people who didn't do what was right. He loved them even if they were doing things that everybody agrees is wrong, let alone what our own faith tells us is wrong. So, I don't know. I think it's Harry learns to love, and we're learning what it is to love too. I don't know.
And that's a good point, though. Also, I feel like everything, especially in book 2, where Malfoy calls Hermione a mudblood, and I think, at least for me, that book sort of put things in perspective to me of anybody who's different from me, whether it be different viewpoints or what have you. That's a person. You can have a discussion with them. You might disagree, and they might be different from you, but that's okay. And as a Christian, we should be aware of that. But we're not always.
Yeah, and I think that she does it because when I first read Mudblood, I'm like, it's such a ridiculous name. Just call it, to me, it's so funny of a name. But then they're highly insulted about it. But if you weren't part of their culture growing up, it's not insulting to you because you don't know what it means. Like, mudblood, what does that mean? I think I've seen, if you look at the past, 10 years, maybe more, I feel like even more than that. I feel like my life before Harry Potter, I remember a time where there was a lot more name calling for different people and different ways of their lifestyle that was negative. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I heard somebody call somebody that name the other night, and I was shocked. But that's something I wouldn't have been shocked with pre Harry Potter publication days. Right. But since then, for somebody to call anybody a specific name because of, their background or their way of life or whatever is highly shocking to me. I don't know. And back in 1996, or whenever, it would not have been as shocking. Right. And maybe it's Harry Potter. I don't know. To me, Harry Potter's been besides the Bible, one of the biggest books of my life. So obviously it's probably Harry Potter for me. But I think, these stories are changing our generation. Isn't there? There was a nation, I forgot which one it was, that made the symbol from Hunger Games when they were going through a huge, difficult time. These stories are changing us, and I think Harry Potter kind of opened that Pandora box to all these fandoms and stories.
Definitely. And before this, no story had quite engulfed the world quite like Harry Potter did, in terms of just the wide popularity that suddenly happened. And I don't know, it seems like, because everybody read Harry Potter. I remember kids who even hated reading were reading Harry Potter when I was younger. It just feels like that all of this that we're discussing, it does seem, because oftentimes with books, they're very personal, so it feels like, well, my experience is different than yours, but we forget, or maybe we don't forget, but I guess it's hard to think about the fact that so many people of our generation read these books, and it did have a huge impact of how our generation thinks. And
it does. Because my parents are baby boomers, and you can tell the difference between the way they think and the way I think.
Right.
I'm a millennial, so my husband's a millennial. Like, he just snaked into the millennial by the skin of his teeth, but he's a millennial too. But yeah, it's crazy, and I don't know. And then my cousin now is getting into it. She's like at the tail end of the millennials, I think. She's getting into it now through the movies.
Very good.
So it's just interesting to be able to share the story with her now. She hasn't watched the 8th film, but she's watched every other one. And it's interesting just to see her and her passion for it. And I hope that she gets all of it, all that I've gotten and more out of these stories in her life. Especially since she was the one that I babysat.
Aw.
I was reading.
There you go.
She's 19 years old. Yeah.
That's
she survived,
your circle
people.
Theory.
She survived.
Yeah. I'm sure there's somebody listening going, what happened to that kid?
Yeah, she survived. She's okay. She's tough.
There you go.
So, yeah, and now she's finally getting to Harry Potter. If I was smart, I should have read her Harry Potter while she was drug-induced.
Oh, yeah.
from
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
That would have been good.
Yeah, my 16-year-old self didn't think that far in advance.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. Everything comes into place eventually.
Exactly. She wasn't ready for it yet.
No. She had to, just like Harry, she had to come into it with her own time.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay. I told her the other night, I'm like, you need a buddy to watch that because she's been waiting. It's been a month since she's watched the films. I'm like, you need a buddy to watch it. I'm here. I will watch it. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Let's get you through this and then get you onto the books.
All right. So this has been a really fascinating and fun conversation. Nicole, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on again.
Yes.
It's been fun.
Again, hopefully more to come.
Yes, that would be so much fun. This is a blast. I think we've been at it for 3 hours.
It's been a while. It's been a lot longer than what the actual length of this episode is.
Yes. But it's been fun.
But good conversations. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Can you tell us where we can find you and where we can order your book from?
Yes. Well, I have let's call it my Muggle website, and it's www.nicolerivera.com, and it's my main website, but I also started this new one just for the release of my obsession with faith and fandom and stories and stuff, so that I didn't have to ruin all the movies for my husband, but I can pour some of the stuff that was in my brain that I'm holding back while we're watching movies into something, and that is potterwars.wordpress.com, and on there that all I talk about is faith and fandom. That's it. Different fandoms besides Harry Potter. I also talk about Star Wars and Hunger Games and the Austen novels and Twilight and Superman stuff sometimes. Just stories and how it relates to the Bible and faith and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's that. And then right now the pre-ordering for the book can be done on the publisher's website, which is www.hickeybooks.com. And if they go on there and they do the click down menu to authors and click on Nicole L. Rivera, it'll take them to the page that talks about my books, and they can click on the Finding Unauthorized Faith book from there, and it should give them pre-order links to Barnes & Noble, iBooks, and pretty soon it's going to be at Amazon. But for right now, you can pre-order the trade paperback directly from Hickey Books through going to that website.
Awesome.
Okay.
And that comes out December 10th?
December 10th
Right.
is when it's available. Yeah.
So once again, Christmas, guys.
Yes, Christmas presents for Harry Potter fans.
Exactly. Perfect time.
Yep. You can go in
It's
and
almost...
see the cover and all that good stuff on the site.
There you go. Awesome. All right, well, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for
Again.
having me. This has been so much fun.
Yes, indeed. This has been fun. I was like a little nervous because I was like, oh, are we going to be able to rehash our conversation quite the way it was before? But it went really well.
Yes, it did. It was a
So-
ton of fun. We have to do it again.
Definitely. Definitely.
Awesome.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.